Hello and welcome to this Project in a Box video session. In this session we're going to be moving on from a quick PowerPoint introduction to the new features of 5.2. In the first detailed session we looked at history collection and trend analysis. In this session we're going to be looking at the new pack of standard reports, practical Scrum method as well. So just to recap the earlier PowerPoint, 61 standard reports available, project, program, portfolio levels, multi-portfolio roll-up, user reports as well, producing reports that output to variously HTML, Word and Excel. Available to you for you to use straight away now on the new version, or to personalize for your own particular requirements. And then in this session we're also going to be looking at the practical Scrum method, which is a new method we're providing to all of our users. So slightly more complete, than includes daily Scrum reporting within the multi-user platforms, which is what we're looking at here. So we're going to have a little look through that as well. Okay, so let's go and do that. So I'm here in my multi-user interface, as we normally do, the Windows application first up, and I'm going to go and select my project of interest, and we're going to go and do some reporting. And of course, just like we've done before, we can come and run our instant project statement report, our consistent report that everyone's going to get exactly the same for their projects. And this is a very popular thing, actually. A standard report, you'd have to go and set it up, you'd have to go and do anything. It's pre-configured by the administrators. Here it's using our current standard, which is the project statement to print. So it's assembling all the materials, producing a Word file, so you've got an output report straight away. You haven't had to do anything, it's done all that hard grind for you. This is broadly similar to the project statement of previously, but a few slight changes. So this time it's running a status history trend, showing the key statuses on the project, rather than just previous one was showing just the latest values for them. This is showing the backstory for up to a year in the project. Much of the rest of this content is the same. We have laid it out slightly differently and changed the size of some of the diagrams to optimize the space. And instead of the benefits image coming from the spreadsheet, we're producing a live chart looking at the benefit budget and the benefit delivered. Of course, you can switch in and out the items you want in each of these spaces. And that's our one-page summary report for the project. So we're not going to save it in this case. We're not going to publish it, but now we're in our project report selection form. We can go and look at the library of other reports that are here. So this is essentially the library you will get on a new version of 5.2. If you upgrade from an earlier version, you'll have all your existing reports there, plus any custom ones that you've built, and then the new set can be added in on top of that. So they won't necessarily appear automatically. You choose whether you want to include them or not. So we had a little look at a couple of these earlier on, actually. We had a look at the annual review when we were looking at the trend history analysis, because there's a lot of that involved in that particular report. We're going to look at the daily Scrum report in a minute when we come on to thinking about our Scrum method. So here's the benefit statement. This one's also a report to Word. Not all of them are. In fact, the majority of these reports run to HTML, and that's because a lot of them are used in the dashboard, which is what we're going to be having a look at in just a second. But this is a benefit statement. It's giving me well, it depends how many benefits you've got in your project, but typically a one-page summary of the benefit position. So in the way that on the project statement, the one-page summary, we just saw a sort of quick overview chart here. Well, here we've got a number of different graphics, charts, list of the benefits for the project. In fact, this one-page benefit statement, when you run a portfolio or program level benefits report, it'll give you a summary plus one of these for each project. So if you're producing like a pack, if you like, but this is just producing the one for that particular project. Now, as I mentioned, a lot of these are mentioned as dashboard items. They're all producing outputs to the browser. Most of them are single topic, and they're designed to fit into the dashboard space that we have within the dashboard engine. But you can also run them as single reports. So if we're interested, for example, in a list of overdue tasks, it'll go away and get that. Because it's producing it to the browser, it's much quicker than it would be to run it to Word, and we just get that block of output. So this is list of overdue tasks for this particular project, and then some information about them. And of course all that, as usual, is coded up into the views that we're running, and it's got different items switched on and off within that structure. If we wanted to go and look at something different, we've got finances statement here, and this is, we can start to see bringing data in from different places. This will be some things from the plan side, some things from the spreadsheet side, some things trended. So here's our trend analysis for the finance timeline. We've got the finances top down, if you like, from the spreadsheet, and that's that bit, and also bottom up coming from the plan when we've allocated them against tasks, and we can see both of those aspects. So here's the summary project cost breakdown rolled up from the individual tasks, and a list of overspent tasks, and the remaining top 5 up to top 5 high cost tasks. So giving us some breakdown of financial aspects of the project, quite different to the one we just looked at a second ago. You know, they're all different because they're pulling in different types of data, and these are reports that we know people are commonly interested in. If we just go back and have a little look at that list again, some of these are designed to go to Word, so we've got the same version going to browser, so you can, you know, choose how to run it, and in fact that's very useful when we come and do that in the browser, which we're going to do in a minute. And then we've got obviously more complete versions like the post report, which used to be a sort of good old favourite from sort of 5 years ago. Again, brought up to date with some new features, new data analysis, etc. But it's a more complete report rather than the one-page project summary. We can do reporting, of course, across the collection of projects, and that's really a very popular aspect here, and because obviously that's something that people really struggle with. It's intensive in terms of time, and can often have poor quality results if you don't get it quite right, melding it all together in spreadsheets. So let's load a couple of those up from here and have a look. So again, we've got some dashboard versions which in many ways mirror the project ones, but they're just about rolling up the data from a set of projects so that you can see that in the dashboard space. But we've got a range of other ones in here as well. So let's pick this one down at the bottom, the program statement. And this is going to bring together a whole range of different data areas for our set of projects. So it'll just go away and run through and collect that data from the various projects and then merge it all together for us. So this one's producing its output to Word as well. Many of these sort of reports that go to bigger audiences are produced for Word, and the sort of thing where you're just doing a quick review yourself, you might just produce directly to HTML. So a load of different things in here. We've got some overview of the properties. Of course, it's very easy to change the properties that you want to see in these particular spaces, and a chart looking at the risk rating totals for the project. Then we've got a timeline summary, single line summary per project, arranged by start date, with some details in there, and here we've chosen to go with some cost information as well. We've got a resource chart, list of overdue milestones across the set of projects, and the change budgets, the change impacts from each project, again calculated as project level properties, brought up into here and rolled up so we can see what the cost change is going to be. And if we're working with tolerances, of course, this is really useful to understand where we are against our tolerances, at a project level, but also then at the portfolio level as these are rolled up. So this is portfolio, a collection of projects that we're dealing with. Then we've got a financial analysis, again bringing through a range of those different data from different places, charting them, looking at the statuses of those items, benefits in a similar sort of way, rolling up all that information, risk analysis. And these of course run filters, so it may not be all the risks, but it might just be the sort of higher level risks across that set of projects. Same for the issues. And we've got some trend analyses, and at the end looking at longer term trends for risks and issues and finances and benefits. So that's and then we've got some spreadsheet sort of elements dropped in at the bottom if we want those. So that's a portfolio or program report. In this case we call this our program statement, bringing together all those different aspects at the top level. You know, you think about the amount of time that would take to do by hand and the risk of getting it all wrong, and here it's just doing it for you. Yeah, it takes a bit longer than the project report, but it's doing an awful lot more work than that. And you can run this for as many projects as you want to in a program. You may need to relay out the layout of it on the page a little bit to make it all look nice, but all the hard work, the quality is right in the data. So, of course, we could be publishing those. We're not going to in this particular case. And that's just by way of example of what a sort of program portfolio type report looks like that brings together the data from one collection of projects. In this case, we're in the portfolio called History Test, so it's those 5 or 6 projects that we're grouping together. And that works for all of these other areas here. We're going to look at one last type of report from here, then we're going to have a look at some from the browser interface as well. And this time we're going to have a look at a multi-portfolio report. So if we think about the way our structure works in the system, we've got projects and all the data is collected at project level. We then might have collections of projects, and those can be a collection which form a program. They can be a collection which form for example, a department. So we've got all the projects in a particular department. All these different groupings that we need to report the aspects of the project to the rightful owners, the department manager or the program manager, for example. But sometimes we want to roll those up one level further. So we might roll up all the projects into their departments, and then all departments up to an operations director, perhaps. And we might roll all the projects for each customer into customer portfolios. And then we might roll all the different customer portfolios up to the sales director, for example, so that they can see how that grouping activity is working. And so that's exactly what this report does. It allows us to specify the bits that we want in it again. And again, we can load some pre-saved standards. So we've got some simple ones here. So we'll go for summary stats only, which is just not going to give me the drill down into each portfolio, but just a summary level picture of those. And I need to choose which portfolios I want to run it against. So I'm running it against these 3 programs here. When I run that, it's going to go away and get all that data rolled up from the properties levels, etc., and bring it together. Nice and quick, this one, usually, even though it's doing quite a lot of work, because actually it's already working on that sort of pre-packaged property type data. So this is it, quite a simple sort of report, but if you think about the work that you would have to do underneath to generate this, again, there's quite a significant item. So for these 3 programs, it's worked how many projects are in each of them, how many are in each different status. It's got the rolled up data from the various benefits and risks and issues, etc., and it rolling those up to the bottom, and we're getting a risk level split. We can see that most of the risks are coming from the new facilities, or most of the risk impact, etc., is coming from the new facilities program in that case. Rolling up our finances across those portfolios, again, and seeing how they look, and then the timelines for those portfolios as well. This is rolling up the percentage complete data from within each of the projects in it and seeing how they stand. Now, this isn't a very good looking picture because they're all well behind, and obviously not the sort of thing you would normally expect to see. And then it can drill down into data, so choosing different types of these report templates will then give you drill down. So you could then have one that then allowed you to go into each of those programs and see the collection of projects and how they're each contributing to that total that we've just seen. And you can then choose obviously how you lay all that out and what analyses you choose to include in those areas. So not drill down, but scroll down to the detail underneath. And this is just like the summary level, but I say you can choose different ones to get different levels. That's a fairly normal sort of approach. So that's looking at reporting from the Windows application. Of course, in the Windows application, we've got the ability to open that form and to see exactly how the report works and to customize it if we want to. When we're running from the browser, what we get is exactly the same set of reports that we've just been running, can be run from here, but we can't customize them. So we're just picking them from a list. And again, if we do some of the same things, I'm going to come in here and produce my project statement for this project. It's the same project we were on earlier, and again, it'll be able to produce that same report immediately. Now, that report is preferentially published in Word. Because this is on the browser and you might be on a smartphone, for example, we don't know if you've got Word available. We can't launch that report straight into Word. So it gives us an option of opening the Word version, but it shows it to us initially in a HTML format. Now, it's exactly the same data, just laid out slightly differently, but we see exactly that content, so we can see that immediately. And if we then want the full Word version, we can open that from here. It'll open as a separate file, and we can then do with it as we wish. You'll see at the top here, and we actually refer to this as the dashboard in the browser interface. It's got those sets of reports that you can choose. So we're in the project report area here, and we could come and produce, for example, the finances statement, and create that here. And we have this thing which allows us to auto hide this away so that we can use more of the space to see the report that we're generating. So let's go and generate that. So here's my finance analysis. It's obviously the same one that we saw running in the Word in the main application earlier, but you're getting it here straight in the browser, like I say, on any device that you want to run it on, and we can then pop that list open and go and choose another. Obviously we can switch over, so we can come to portfolio report, for example, and we might go for a control panel here and get ourselves quite a different sort of report again, showing statuses and number of risks and issues, etc., and timelines and stats. Very different sort of report. Again, this one's designed, often to use in the dashboard. You just want a quick picture of where things are. You can run those straight away here. Again, you can always publish these back into the project from this space as well. And in fact, when you're here, you can open them out into a new window if you want to look at them in full, or if you want to tab up a number of reports and flick between them, which people often do as well. So all those same report types are available here. The user report as well, which we haven't really talked about in this session, but they're all available here. 61 new reports, many of them bringing in that latest trend analysis content, but all rejigged and redeveloped for this new version, for the data we now collect, and for the sort of reports that we see customers wanting to do all the time. So they're all there. Like I say, on the Windows application, you can personalize and customize those if you want to, or you can just use them straight off the shelf as they are here. So let's go and have a think about the other aspect we're going to look at in this session, which is the Scrum method. So I've got a Scrum project here within my portfolio, and in fact that's the first thing that's really important to say. Scrum it is a really popular approach in certain technical fields, particularly around IT, when you've often got lots of changes happening, fast-moving environments, and it's about not having to constantly replan, but always adjusting to be doing the most important, relevant things that you can for delivering the best project outcome you can with the resources you have available. Now, the problem, and that's great, and that's a really good aspect of Scrum, and we all like that a lot. But the problem Scrum often has is a reputation for being a bit too light of foot and easygoing around those sorts of aspects, and we don't plan up ahead, etc. And that makes it difficult for it to merge properly into a corporate environment, and suspicions around it might be run a bit loose, not suspicions rather than actuality, but these things count for quite a lot. So this practical Scrum method we've devised is about wrapping a sort of traditional Scrum environment with a launch activity, with something that puts it in a more conventional corporate type of box, so that it can be integrated into reporting, as we've just seen. Our program level report program statement we ran earlier includes some of our end-step projects, could include Prince projects, could include practical Scrum projects, and you wouldn't really know that by looking at the line of the project. It's got the same sorts of data in it. And that's really important. It fits into your corporate structure. So here we've got our launch process, which gets the project teams to do the stuff that puts it into a normal corporate sort of framework. So we've got a mandate. We're going to expect them to collect and record a mandate. We're going to build that out into a business case with some benefits analysis, and a demonstration of what the project's going to accomplish and why and for whom, etc. And that then starts to roll down into proper roles, setting up a project controls, communication storage, product backlog, that's where we're starting to really come into the scrumminess of it, if you like, and we'll get our product backlog template, and of course here we get our previews of things. We're going to go and have a look at this in much more detail in a second. Obviously we can work on these files, viewing them, previewing them, check out, check in, etc. But with that launch process is very important in terms of putting Scrum into a proper corporate context. So that's the idea of the launch, and then we come down into our more conventional sort of sprint activities. Of course we can monitor all that here, so we've got a number of different sprints. We can build them as we go along, and we'll have our sprint planning meeting. So this is obviously in sprint planning, this process, and we're going to have the templates and materials that we need to do that activity. User stories, product backlog, putting it again back into our proper context of controls and business case, etc. And then we're going to run through our sprints. Obviously I can navigate from the main diagram or from my sidebar here, and we're going to be doing the sorts of things that we normally do. We're going to have our daily scrums, and again we've got a process for that, but as part of our daily scrum we're not just going to be updating product backlogs, etc., but we are going to be reviewing controls so that we can keep that plan and risk and issue information in the sort of context that people are going to expect in a corporate environment. Hence why we could do our reporting earlier. So all that's set in here. Let's go back and have a look at the same thing in the Windows application. So I'll come back and choose my project in just the same way as we did before. Obviously slightly different diagram to fit into this space, but it's doing exactly the same things. Both of them had a big button saying Daily Scrum Report here, which allows us to extract the data from the key files and put it into a sort of Scrum briefing, a daily Scrum briefing note. So we're going to do that here, and this is going to bring out sort of aspects of the reporting again. So we had a brief look at this in the first session when we were talking about value panels, because this does use some value panels. But this report brings together perhaps a bit more of the traditional reporting stuff that we do, with some of that new trend thing as well. So the idea is that you'll be updating all your source data, and then when you want to sit down and do your daily scrum and have your 15-20 minutes just reviewing where you are, what the situation is, what's happened yesterday, what's planned for today, what obstacles have you got, that's exactly what this is giving you. It's giving you the latest data, the burn down from your backlog, the product backlog and the sprint backlog. It's giving you some statistics on that, how your burn rates improved or decreased yesterday to today, how far you are through the sprint, what the current burn is and what the target is. So we're ahead, as we can see here. Information about the current stories that are being involved in this sprint, and that's again brought from our product backlog spreadsheet. And then we've got the what did we accomplish yesterday, looking back at the task list, and we can of course come into this is set up so we can come in here and write our notes. We can have our discussion about this, review it, put some notes into here. We can then come to what we're going to do today. We see that going forwards, see who's supposed to be working on these activities, and again we can put our notes into here, etc. And then finally we've got, and of course these pages are spaced because many sprints might have a lot of activities going on in parallel. Then we've got what issues are challenging our progress. These are the live issues coming from the register. We can see what the issues are, what responses are in place, who's working on them, are they getting anywhere, etc. How's that affecting or likely to affect the work that we're doing? We're doing all this. We can then simply save and close that, and we can then publish that back in as part of our documentation. We publish that back in. That's going to form part of the report structure for this Scrum project, and we can go back and review those anytime we want to, with all those notes about the meeting that we've had. Of course, this documentation builds up over time as we're working through our product backlog. We're going to be adding new sprints, etc., and we can do that by just injecting a new sort of stage, as we would call them, this repeatable element within the project, and drop in those new sprint documents that we're going to need. So it's the typical project in a box approach, which is to lay it out so it's easy to follow for people that may not have used an approach like this before. We have links through to further guidance, and there are videos to support how all this works and the key controls within it, such as the product backlog. But it's about laying out that content so people can flow nicely through it. It's about engaging it back into the corporate structure. So it is sprint as you Agile purists would know it, but it's wrapped a little bit to make it a bit more acceptable to a corporate environment. Because of our experience of seeing people doing this in practice is corporates are often a little bit suspicious about how the Scrum thing fits well into their structure, unless they're entirely Scrum, in which case they're probably pretty happy about it. But when it's a mixture, it's a bit less easygoing. Okay, so let's just come back and wrap that up. So we've now done history collection and trend analysis, pack of standard reports, practical Scrum method. In the final of these detailed videos, we're going to look at the integration extensions and two-factor authentication. I hope you found that interesting. We go into these things in quite a lot of depth because many existing customers will use it as up-training for the new version, as well as people interested in buying it, finding about what all the latest stuff is. If you've got any further questions, do let us know and we'll be happy to jump on a web meeting and run through those with you. Okay, thank you very much.